Alright guys, so we're going to talk about the Nikon 24-70 f4 Z lens. Anyone who calls this a kit lens is doing a major disservice to the optical quality inside. If you're a beginner photographer or even experienced and you can't get amazing results just with this lens alone, you don't have any excuses, right? The lens is not letting you down in any way. So I have a lot of good things to say about the lens. I have one thing that really annoys me, but let's just get into it. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and of course we'll take a look at a bunch of sample pictures. The lens feels really solid in the hand. It feels like a well-made object. This is metal right here. The lens mount is metal as well. This thing really inspires confidence. Some people may be put off by the fact that it's made in Thailand, but the truth is that a lot of Nikon's high-end photographic equipment has been made at the Thailand factory. It's lightweight, weighing in at 500 grams. It's relatively compact, just over 89 millimeter length, and it's weather resistant. It has a convenient autofocus manual focus switch here, and a programmable control ring, which by default on Nikon Z cameras is set to focus. However, you can change this to things like ISO, exposure compensation, or you can turn the ring off entirely. It has a collapsible design, which we'll talk about in detail in just a bit, but that allows the lens to be very compact when it's not being used. Even if it's not your primary lens, this is a perfect backup lens just because it doesn't take up that much space. It has a great minimum focus distance of just 30 centimeters or a foot, okay, 0.99 feet there, Nikon being specific. And we haven't even begun to talk about the optical quality. Guys, realistically speaking, there are barely any chromatic aberrations, coma, flaring, fringing, any of that funny business to speak of. This is an extremely well-corrected lens, clearly made with the benefits of computer-aided design. And it is very, very sharp and contrasty, right? Nikon engineers were basically saying, hey, we were playing with one hand tied behind our back with that old F mount. Now with the Z mount, you can see just what we're capable of and what we can fit into this compact package, right? It's Nikon saying, well, you want sharpness? Well, here you go. If you really want sharpness, you've got sharpness. Are you not entertained? Of course, some people say, no, we're not entertained. We'd like a bit more bokeh and background separation. But this f4, the fact that it's a constant aperture makes me really, really happy. I love constant aperture lenses where you don't have to worry about the aperture changing as you zoom in and out. And also f4 is this kind of Goldilocks zone, right? It still gives you that subject background separation, okay, so you can use that creatively, but it doesn't allow you to just blow out the background entirely and rely on bokeh as a crutch. This may be the cure for bokeh obsession, right? This f4. And I'm so used to, I still have that PTSD from Nikon's F mount, where if a lens is at f4, you just know you have to change the aperture, stop it down to something like 5.6 to get it acceptably sharp. But this thing is sharp even at f4. Now if you want the corners to be super sharp, yeah, you might have to go down to f5.6, but no further than that. Has a nice beefy zoom ring here at the front of the lens, can't miss it. It focuses extremely quick, it's accurate, and you get that 5-axis in-body image stabilization when you use it with the full-frame Nikon Z camera. On top of that, this lens is amazing value when part of a kit. I don't know if I would pay full price for it new, simply because you can buy it used for considerably less. This is a Nikon S-line lens. You know that the lens is going to be sharp. I don't think Nikon is allowed to have any fun when designing S lenses. It has to be optically perfect. No quirks, no funny business. The lens has to perform admirably at all focal lengths, at all apertures. If you're used to f-mount mid-range zooms, you are going to be blown away. Okay, so let's find something that's bad. So here it is right here mounted on my Nikon Z5 camera, and I think it's a pretty good balance. Maybe even a little larger than I would like, just given the fact that the Z5 is so small and compact along every dimension. This lens kind of sticks out. Now this wouldn't be an issue, but when it's in its fully zoomed in position, you can just see how much it extends. Okay, so you're not going to be stealthy or inconspicuous on the street with a setup like this. Okay, everybody's gonna know that you're shooting with a big camera. The thing that I really don't like, aside from the fact that I spent over $1,000 US on a camera with no top LCD screen. The thing I really don't like, and this thing that really ticks me off, is this collapsible design. Okay, so you're out on the street, you're walking around, for example, you're on vacation, and you want to take a picture, and the camera tells you, uh-oh, before taking photos, rotate the zoom ring to extend the lens. Right? That's because before you can take a picture, you have to rotate this zoom ring a little bit, and then it snaps into action. Okay, and then you can zoom in and out between 24 to 70. And this really bothers me because I have this tendency, this habit that I've built over the years. Every time I take a picture with a zoom lens and I'm walking to my next place, my next stop, whatever it may be, I tend to retract the lens back to its smallest position. And then you just get this message again. So it really slows you down if you have this kind of annoying habit that I do, okay, which means you can't just put the camera up to your eye and get the shot. You have to always remember to rotate this thing. And this thing is pretty stiff. I mean, it's good that it's stiff. Okay, it's not just going to get out of its collapsed position while it's in your camera bag or something. So it balances nicely. It is a little front heavy if we want to nitpick. I mean, guys, don't get me wrong. It's not like this setup is heavy at all, but you can notice that the lens is front heavy. I always think to myself when using this lens, okay, I'm packing around this big zoom. If I'm going to pack around the zoom, I could be carrying around a 24 to 200 with me and get considerably longer focal range. Of course, you do get that variable aperture with that lens. I guess what I'm saying is I really wish Nikon had a 24 to 105 f4. Not even necessarily of S-line quality. I know there's one coming out. It could be a variable aperture between 2.8 and f4. I don't know. I just wish we had one, and I don't really need optical perfection. I just need that zoom range. Another thing is, well, this focus ring here, I tend not to use it too much. I mean, it's tiny. I just turned this whole thing off. I don't want anything to do with this. I understand some people might want to program this for ISO or exposure compensation or something like that. But for me, this is too small to be useful. There's no aperture ring on this lens. That's just a function of modern lens designs. I guess they're not coming back. Finally, guys, there is noticeable distortion and vignetting of this lens, especially at the widest end, which is 24. However, that distortion and vignetting magically goes away when you load the files into Lightroom because automatic lens corrections are applied. So it's kind of like Schrodinger's distortion, right? It's there, but once you attempt to observe it, it kind of goes away. Okay, so that's just a factor of optical lens design, modern lens design, to make it as sharp as possible, because again, that's what the people want, and Nikon gives the people what they want. There's going to be some compromises made. Finally, guys, I want to take a look at some sample pictures. I don't ever have to think about what aperture I'm at. The aperture I simply use as a tool for foreground-background separation. In terms of sharpness, I know it's going to be sharp in the center at all apertures. If I want sharpness across the entire range, even in the extreme corners, which I often crop out anyway, you would set it to 5.6. Very contrasty, just makes photography pretty easy. Now with this mirrorless system and lenses like this, it's photography on easy mode. You can do just about anything with this lens for travel, environmental portraiture, family, kids, pets, nighttime, urban, street photography, architecture photography, you name it. And just to illustrate, and this is more for beginners, let's say you're walking around and you encounter something like this, some object like this Canon. Now if you only had one focal length, for example if you had a prime lens, you wouldn't be able to get this kind of variety of shots. For example, with the zoom lens we can zoom out all the way, take a picture at 24 millimeters and get close to the Canon to exaggerate its size, and especially shooting from underneath, we can cower in front of its sheer magnificence, or we can take a picture from the top, or we can get in close on some details, or again we can zoom out and capture the whole thing, or we can zoom in, walk backwards, and then take a picture of the Canon to compress the perspective. Where it excels, I think, is a walk around photojournalistic capacity. You do still want some context in the background, right? If I wanted to do pure portrait photography, this is not the lens I would choose. But for photojournalism, reportage, I can think of very few solutions that would be better than this. Again, if they had a 24 to 105, that's the one I would gravitate towards. But this is a perfect mid-range zoom. So if you guys have used this lens, if you've bought it, sold it, upgraded, side graded, downgraded, let us know in the comment section. I'm still very new to the Z system, and I'm looking forward to trying out more lenses and camera combinations in the future. As always, guys, thank you for watching. and subscribe for more.